بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's The 99 Beautiful Names of God, المقصد الأسنى في شرح أسماء الله الحسنى, translated by David Borel and Nazih Dahir. We have reached number 96, which means that inshallah we will complete reading the all four basically names that we still have to read, but that's not the end of the book. We still have an epilogue and an explanation, commentary on what Imam Ghazali has done, and it's a very important part that sheds light on what he is trying to send out as a message, and also to address certain theological concerns. But we will deal with that once we reach it, inshallah. So number 96 is Al-Baqi, the everlasting. Imam Ghazali said he is the existent, whose existence is necessary in itself, the necessary existent. واجب الوجود الموجود والواجب وجوده بذاته واجب الوجود. When the mind relates it to the future, it is called everlasting. سمي باقيا الباقي هو الحي الباقي الحي الباقي. You will find this I think on the Al-Baqi on the written in the of course on the tiles at the Dome of the Rock and elsewhere, that ultimately, subhanallah, if you think about Al-Baqi, then everything else is not. In one sense, of course, our existence is dependent and contingent, really. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is necessary existent. So it's in terms of when we talk about the future, then we talk about Al-Baqi, the everlasting, and when it is related to the past, it is called eternal, Al-Qadim. سمي قديما. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could be described as Al-Qadim. Everything else is muhdath, hadith. The everlasting is such that the projection of its existence into the future has no end, but so it is declared to be forever, abadi. While the absolutely eternal, Al-Qadim al-Mutlaq, is one whose existence into the past does not finally terminate in a first moment. There is no beginning. And this is why the universe cannot be co-eternal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It cannot be described as Qadim. In fact, in this case, and so it is declared to be eternal in the Azali, no beginning. Now let's, for 1 minute or so, speak about the no first moment. Even the atheist astrophysicists today admit that, through subscribing to the Big Bang Theory, that there is a first moment for the universe. So there is a beginning for the universe, so it's not eternal. And I wish basically we can bring this back to the days of Imam Al-Ghazali and speak with even later on with Ibn Rushd and those who came before Al-Ghazali Ibn Sina, uh, and Al-Farabi. There is a beginning, and the scientists, they strive very hard to understand what happened in the during that not only first moment, first second, really. The problem is that they their talk might if you say there was nothing, absolutely nothing, that does make sense that we will have something thereafter. There is no cause, and you cannot say that the material was before the Big Bang theory, that first second, because it would be contradictory in really in nature, because even after the part of the first second, uh, matter did not form yet. There was material soup, literally, because of the intense heat. This universe was born, and I use the word born here, of course, allegorically, a metaphor. Uh, it was born in an absolute state of sterility, and this means that we should not have, scientifically, we should not have really any form of life, no plants, no animals, because it was sterile. There was no way for anything to develop, uh, evolve. No, there's no room for evolution from that perspective. Uh, that which is sterile should remain sterile. Of course, once we submit to the belief, which is the only way out of this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this universe, then it makes sense. So there was no first moment for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is declared to be eternal, azali. Now you're saying the existence necessary in itself embraces all that. So these names are employed only to the extent that the mind relates this necessary existence to past or future. Yet only changeable things participate in past or future, because past or future are temporal expressions, and only change or motion participate in time, since motion is divided into past and future, and changeable things participate in time by means of change, that is, motion. So what is above change and motion is not in time. ولا يدخل في الزمان إلا تغير والحركة. So what is above change and motion is not in time, and past or future has no part in it. So in such things, passing is no different from enduring. For past and future are only real for us when things have elapsed for us or in us, or when new things will occur. It is necessary that things happen one after another, so that they can be divided into a past which has already ceased to exist and is over, or a present which is current, and that whose later renewal is expected. So, to the extent that there is no renewal or no expiration, there is no time. How could this be otherwise? For the truth, I think here basically he's speaking about al-haq. Wal-haqqu ta'ala. And I think this is extremely important. Wal-haqqu ta'ala. For the truth, may he be praised and exalted, was before time. And to the extent that he created time, is not at all changed in his essence. وحيث خلق الزمان لم يتغير من ذاته شيء. For before he created time, time did not apply to him. and after creating time, he continued as he had been. So whoever said duration is a quality additional to the essence of the everlasting is far afield. ولقد أبعد من قال إن البقاء صفة زائدة على ذات الباقي، وأبعد منه من قال القدم. And even further afield is the one who said pre-existence is a quality additional to the essence of the eternal Qadim. The best proof you can have of the incorrectness of this view is the folly which results in considering the everlasting character of the everlasting and the everlasting character of the attributes, as well as the pre-existence of the eternal and the pre-existence of the attributes. While this is really the end of the entry of Imam Al-Ghazali, let's really consider uh, what he said. Essentially, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is necessary existent, without beginning, without end. He created time and space, and Imam Ghazali does specify that time includes change and movement, and any movement is a movement in space. So if we say, for example, one example, one solar year, we talk about the Earth uh, completing the its own orbit, going back to the same point, any point really. To go back to the same point, that's 1 year, and it's a movement in time, but it's a movement in space, and that creates time really. That's a concept of time. Any concept of time is related to a movement in space. Even the classical clock, we see that there's a movement. There has to be a movement in space. Even the electrical, so that's the mechanical. The electrical watches and clocks, the movement is really an electrical charge that travels, completes a circuit, and you can time it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created time and space. And this is why those of us Muslims who insist on not interpreting the anthropomorphic verses allegorically, they are in trouble. And sometimes there are narratives that are absolutely unacceptable, irreconcilable with the Islamic worldview, with Islamic creed, with Islamic theology. The next attribute, al-warith, the inheritor, that's number 97, this is page 148, is the one to whom possessions return after the possessors disappear, and that is God. May he be praised and exalted, since he is the one who endures after the creation vanishes, and all things return to him at their end result, as their end result. For example, وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا. Really, that's the end of its function. You talk about the mountains. قل ينسفها ربي نسفا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will blow them up. كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه. Everything will perish, be destroyed, vanish, save Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, save the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course. ليس كمثله شيء. He is the one who asked at that time, who takes positions today? لمن الملك اليوم? And he answers, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that belongs to God, one and prevailing. لله الواحد القهار. And this is said in the face of the opinion of most people, for they think they have both property and possession. And on that day, the true situation will be revealed to them. This announcement expresses the truth, which will be disclosed to them at that time. When Imam Al-Ghazali says elsewhere that all the titles are the creation of Satan, the honorific titles, with all due respect, in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia, for example, the sultans, they have like their honorific titles. It's like a paragraph. Uh, Everything. No excellencies, no. You'll not be addressed as Your Excellency. You'll not be addressed as Mr. President. That's it. Titles are the creation of Satan because they deceive. They might feed the ego. They might feed a lowly relationship to this life, trapped in the material realm. Again, and this is said in the face of the opinion of most people, for they think they have both property and possession, and on that day the true situation will be revealed to them. This announcement expresses the truth, which will be disclosed to them at that time. Now, those endowed with spiritual perception have always realized the meaning of this announcement, hearing it without benefit of sound or letters, certain that possession belongs to God, one and prevailing in every moment of every hour of every day, and that He has been thus always and shall be so eternally. But this is grasped only by one who perceives the truth of the divine. Again, whenever the translation is divine unity, we remind ourselves that it's the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Tawheed, in the work of creation, of course, and knows that the solitary one at work in power and sovereignty is one, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we have explained that in the beginning of Kitab Tawakkul in Ihya Ulumuddin, the revival of the religious sciences, revivification of the religious sciences, of the Islamic sciences, let it be sought there, for this book cannot contain it. Of course, legally, one would say this is my property. You have the deeds, you have the ownership, you have the papers, but that's always temporal. You and what you claim as your possession both are accidentals. Your existence is contingent, and your possession is contingent. And in fact, when people write, they will have like a plaque or a carved stone on their the entrance of their buildings, right above the door or the gate. And al-mulku lillah, property belongs, possession belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It might not reflect a deep theological, it might not reflect a deep theological understanding of the nature of this life. Probably it is used to uh, against the evil eye, if you will, something like that. Yes, the whole universe belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our relationship with anything is always contingent, and it's temporal and conditional and relative, and one might say unless things are done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it might be in vain. Al-Rashid, the right in guidance, is the one who plans or whose plans are ordered to their goals according to approved ways of acting without indication of an advisor or the directions of a director or the guidance of a guide. And he is God subhanahu wa ta'ala. May he be praised and exalted. Every man is rightly guided in the measure that he is directed by right reason in the plans he makes to assimilate himself to God with regard to his intentions, his religious duties, and his worldly affairs. The Arabic is probably, let me say, every man is rightly guided in the measure that he is directed by right reason in the plans he makes to assimilate himself to God with regard to his intentions. والله تعالى رشد كل عبد بقدر هدايته في تدبيراته لإصابة مشاكلة الصواب من مقاصده في دينه ودنياه. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I think the sentence should be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides every servant in his affairs. So I think there's basically one paragraph, two sentences. Second sentence, or maybe the third sentence needs to be corrected. Number 99, As-Sabur, the patient, is the one who does not let haste move him to carry out an action before its time, but rather decides matters according to definite plan. And brings them about in delineated ways, not keeping them from their appointed time as a lazy person would do by procrastinating, nor bringing them forth before their time as a precipitate person would be hastening, but rather disposing each thing in its proper time, in the way in which it needs to be, and according to what it requires, and all that without being subjected to a force opposing his will. Nothing, of course, could oppose his will, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there's an appointed time. Just think about the Byzantines, الروم. غلبت الروم في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلب سيغلبون في بضع سنين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the Byzantines, the Romans, that they will be defeated, but in a few years they will defeat, meaning the Persians. And subhanallah, there's and the believers will be happy with the victory. So there is a set time for everything. There was a time when the Crusaders um, occupied Jerusalem and Palestine, and really uh, far and wide, because when they came to Palestine, they came through the land that we call Lebanon today, and before that Syria, and before that Turkey. In fact, just 50 miles or so south of Konya, they literally behaved like cannibals. They did cook, adults and barbecue children. This is a BBC documentary. It's not a documentary made by Muhammad and Ahmed and Mustafa and Ali, and no, it's a BBC documentary. So there was a time when they occupied Jerusalem. Some 92 years later, they lost it. There's a time for everything. Jerusalem is a city that has a high turnover, historically speaking, and different peoples, different religions, different cultures, different civilizations, different armies. It has been sacked tens of times in its history. And it seems that in biblical scriptures, this land, the Holy Land, will vomit the unjust. It will vomit the unjust. And to that I say, Amen. So far as man's patience is concerned, it will require endurance, since the meaning of patience for him involves affirming religious or rational resolve in opposing the impulses of passion and anger. And if two opposing motives contend for him, and he repels the impulse leading to rashness and haste, yet inclines to the one inducing him to delay, he will be called patient, since he caused the impulse to haste to be overcome. In the case of God, may he be praised, inclination to haste is non existent. So far as haste is concerned, he is further from it than anyone in whom an inclination exists, yet is overcome. So he, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the one most deserving of this name, after one has removed from consideration any conflict of inclinations or any need to overcome them by way of exertion. If we could only be patient, life will be much peaceful between spouses, between siblings, between neighbors, colleagues, a different social fabric, and also, as we usually talk about, international relations, also between nations. Civilizations do not clash, and this is a direct critique of Huntington's Clash of Civilizations. It's those the commander in chief does make a decision to go and invade a country, and also not only they make that decision, but also they make the decision to spread lies about why they go to that country, as in the case of Iraq. Yes, many examples. many examples. So it's not a clash. There is no clash of civilization. And also responding to Fukuyama, this is not the end of history. It did not end. It did not end. And the liberal paradigm is not the end of human endeavor. As long as there are Muslims, that's not the end of the story. Inshallah, we'll continue to bring a more moral emphasis and bring the moral compass to humanity at large, inshallah. So we still have the epilogue and the explanations and the uh, a good, chunk of writings that Imam Ghazali uh, added to this book, inshallah, and we'll begin reading that in the next session. Until then, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.